Susan, your wealth word is greater good. What does that mean to you?
Greater good is in my book, The Guide to Living Upward, in the back is a dictionary. And there's like 120 words, I think, about 120 words in the Living Upward dictionary. I find that as I teach and talk about and talk to others about the language of living upward and wellness and well-being that everybody's using, everybody has slightly different definitions for words. And they're often based on our belief systems. So I peeled these words open and looked inside for the wisdom in the word and tried to create a simple definition that made the language more accessible and the meaning more accessible. Like this is available to everybody. So greater good is a term that's used more now. And I'm like, what does that mean? And I ended up having a whole theme in the book on the greater good. Greater good, a community of reciprocal relationships. So what's a reciprocal relationship? Let me just add that too to our discussion because it's important. Unconditional participation in the cycle of giving and receiving. That's what wealth is. It's a community of relationships that are built on giving and receiving. Gifts given, gifts received, a gift economy, as opposed to a transactional economy where you give me this, I give you that. There's this transactional exchange. That's the way most wealth occurs, as we typically think of wealth. But if we look at it as a greater good, and that I have something important to share, some part of myself that I want to share. And when I do, whether it's a smile or whether it's a book, it's coming from me. It's my genuine gift to you. And what happens when I share my genuine gift to you, you're just ready to give back, either to me or somebody else. It doesn't matter. Whether you're ready to contribute your gifts. And so there's this constant generosity and gratitude. Generosity, I act with generosity. You respond with gratitude. You act with generosity. I respond with gratitude. And it becomes an engine of abundance because we've got everything we need in that moment. We are wealthy. We have everything we need. And to me, as that becomes the way more and more people operate, you have a wealthy society. You have a society of abundance, whether that society is 2 people or 10 or 20 or 1,000,000. That's my definition of wealth, that we create a greater good by creating within it relationships that are reciprocal, that are based on generosity and gratitude. And when we live that way, we live in a state of abundance.
It's so interesting because I think of, well, you can call it the like-mindedness, you could call it the magnetic poles, where you become attracted to one another when you have that reciprocal piece. But sometimes, and this is where I'm going to play around with this, there's that generosity and that free giving of spirit, but sometimes there's still that expectation of an ask. How do you deal with that?
As a reality, I think in our world that, well, here, let me give an example with my book. I had to publish it. There was a lot of time, effort, and money that went into creating this book. There was also just, it came from me. I mean, it came from the truth of what I know and what I've experienced and what I want to share. So we have the transactional part. I really kind of need you to buy it. But more importantly, I give it as an act of generosity and believe as I do that it opens you to a new experience. And if it opens you to a new experience, that's gratitude on your part. And that comes back to me. So although there's a transactional level, talk about balance again. There's a transactional level. Yes, I have a book, and yes, it costs money, but I have a gift, and I want you to receive it and be moved and find insight and meaning in that experience. And that'll come back to me too. That will be the cycle. That will be the giving and receiving. So accept that the reality of both. But do we keep them in balance?
Very interesting. And it's interesting as well as sometimes we're teaching other people by our generosity of, well, I'm doing this because I simply want to, and it feels good to me. So
Mhm.
how someone receives it is really up to them. But sometimes when we're doing those things, people are learning from us as well. And I think of that ripple effect and how that ripple goes out, and you're talking about it comes back too.
Mhm. Yeah. And it comes back to this feeling of being alive, that's so much a part of health. And the as we experience this, like, oh, it feels so good to be alive, what we do is we open ourselves up to receive. And for me, that's more the that's in my dictionary, how I define gratitude is the readiness to receive. It's not the thing I got, it's me showing up in the present moment, ready to receive that peach that's sitting in my hand. I'm not rushing through it, or even the coffee I'm drinking, that I'm ready to receive it. I'm ready to receive the smell and the taste and the temperature and the feeling of the mug. I'm ready for that. That's gratitude, because then it comes to you. Just like you were saying, it's like an attractor. So if we have that feeling of aliveness and ready for life, that brings in, then we see it. We see it everywhere. It brings in so many opportunities to connect. And to me, that's the fuel for the engine, is showing up ready to receive. And then it comes. And when it comes, and it comes, and it comes, because I'm ready and I get so filled up by it, where else is it going to go but back out into the world? Oh, and then it's going to come and come again. So, yes, and it becomes this cycle. And at some point, you can't tell the difference between the giving and the receiving, because the receiving feels like I'm giving, and my giving feels like I'm receiving. It's abundance. It's just living in abundance.
And what is it in your life that you understood the greater good? Is this something you've always felt from childhood or something more that you learned about in adulthood?
There was a lot in between childhood and late adulthood, because I think as children, we do know it. And then we kind of forget it because, we're busy getting done what needs to be done. We're trying to feel safe in this world. We're managing whatever it is, we're dealing with the traumas that have thrown us off, thrown us into needs to protect ourselves. So all that happens, and we forget that it's as simple as hanging out in the woods and, picking violets out of the floor of the forest, and kids know that. And they're right there enjoying themselves and feeling the specialness of the moment in their own way. That's what we want to get back to. So yes, I did know it. And yes, I did forget it. And I rediscovered it mostly through gardening and understanding that everybody in the garden has a job, and well, job's not the right word. Everybody has a contribution to make. One of my favorite examples is a squash plant has huge leaves, and they provide shade for all the bugs, all the insects and the worms and everything that are under it, that are in the soil, digging around the soil, making room for the roots of the squash plant so it can spread and grow. So providing the shade for the little guys who were doing the work to allow my roots to spread. There it is. There's a reciprocal relationship. That worm's doing what that worm knows how to do best in the world, dig around in the soil. And wow, it's a gift to the squash plant. So we can always find these lessons in nature. And I think if we pay attention to them and are open to the fact that they can teach us better about how to live and how to experience wealth as a gift economy, because that's what that garden is. It's a gift economy. There's no transactions. The worm's not saying, well, if you don't give me any shade, I'm not going to give you soil for your roots. It's just gifts. So I think that's, for me, been a very big source of my shift in understanding. And, working in my shamanic practice of understanding that part of my nature and, bringing it to others really involved going deeply into the natural world. And that's very much a part of a shamanic training, per se, for lack of a better phrase. Yeah, lots of lessons there. And again, but it means taking some time for it, making space for it, and making space for yourself to show up for it. Bountiful summer. Growing up, I spent timeless days in the Adirondacks at my grandparents' camp. My grandfather's maze of gardens was a wonderful place to wander in the early morning. He would tend his plants and help me pick fresh raspberries for my cereal. I loved this. When we moved to New England a few years ago, I felt like I had come home. The seasons felt so familiar, especially summer. Now, when I step outside early on a summer morning, the scent and texture of the air take me right back to my grandfather's garden. We have a garden too, with sunflowers hovering over the blueberry patch and hollyhocks tumbling against the walls of our shed. Raspberries and squash, peas and beans, potatoes, tomatoes, apples, and peaches all grow together in wonderful worm-filled soil, dense with compost and weeds. Bees hum, butterflies flutter, and birds sing us awake every morning. This is the community my husband and I inhabit all summer long. These bountiful summers have been heart openers for me. I've come to appreciate that summer success is a group endeavor and no one succeeds alone. Plants, birds, insects, and I flourish in our shared community through our relationships with one another. And the key is that those relationships are reciprocal, nurtured by gifts given and gifts received. The honeybee savors the nectar from the flower and in turn spreads the plant's pollen across the land. The squash leaves grow big and wide, protecting from the sun the small insects and worms, busily making room for plant roots to spread. And like my grandfather, I plant and I weed. I pick fresh raspberries right from the vine. In return, the raspberries bear fruit again. Summer puts on a display with a wild, colorful, creative, and productive cast of characters, all doing their part in crafting a community of reciprocal relationships that together lift up the whole of creation. This summer, let nature show you the way.